Hello everyone, I'm Michael, and today, I'm going to tell you a story. What harmful things are being taught to children? Story 1. When my 5-year-old has a rough behavior day, I'll ask if she wants to start over and we pretend to go to sleep and wake up. We ask how each other slept, and pretend like whatever argument we were having just never existed. If it's towards the end of the day, I'll say it's okay, sweetheart, we can try again tomorrow. About a year ago, I was having a terrible day. Work was awful, dinner didn't come out right, and she was being just so. I would grouse at her to get off me. Put the crayons away, stop making that noise. The couch is not a jungle gym. Goo. When it came time for bed, I laid her down and said, I'm sorry. I was being snippy with you today, and you didn't do anything wrong. She reached up to hug me and said, It's okay, Mama. We can try again tomorrow. That's when I suddenly realized I was doing okay with the whole teaching empathy thing. Story 2. One group of kindergartners was given a type of toy and specifically told that it makes noise. The other group of kindergartners was given the toy but not told whatsoever what that toy does. The group that was specifically told what the toy does only played with the toy to make it make noise. The other group that was not told what it does was able to play with the toy and found that the toy not only makes noise, but lights up, stretches, etc. The conclusion of the study was that when children are told something rather than letting them figure it out themselves, they're less likely to work out problems and experiments for themselves. I strongly believe this feeds into adulthood, with standardized testing and multiple choice questions. I don't know what an educational system without those types of tests would look like, but I certainly hope we continuously work towards improving a teaching style that has shown to limit problem-solving skills. Story 3. My parents used to make fun of me when I cried. They even created a mock song to sing whenever I started crying, so guess what? I stopped crying. 27 years later, I can't cry at all and I can't tell others about my stress levels without getting upset. Boo! My parents are really nice people, but I was their first child in the early 90s, so they didn't really know how to deal with a crying child. Story 4. My son's preschool has a strict you do not have to play if you don't want to policy. No one has to play with anyone they don't want to play with. No one has to hug or touch anyone or be touched if they don't want it. No one has to share their toys or other school supplies if they aren't done with it. In fact, the preschool teacher will go over and referee and say, Is Bobby done with the toy car? No? Then Mikey, you have to wait until he is done. It's pretty refreshing. I wanted to let you know there are new philosophies, and my son's preschool really strongly teaches body autonomy. Your body is your own, and no one can touch it or make you do anything with it without your permission. Story 5. It wasn't official policy, but we had a lot of discretion in the daycare I worked at. I did almost all the things you listed in the post. Some of it was a conscious effort, and some of it was natural. I remember at first seeing the surprise on the 3-year-olds' faces when I said, No, Timmy does not have to give you that toy. And wouldn't you know, a week into the routine and the kids wouldn't fight. I think telling kids that you can just walk up and take something because sharing causes more fights. They are tiny humans and they deserve to have some agency. Saying no to unwanted touch. Saying no to other kids who are bothering them and not telling them to get along. And I had the best behaved class. Anecdotal, but I know it mattered. Story 6. Questions like this are why I believe in being infinitely clear with my kids. You are going to hear total crap from other kids. If you hear something you don't understand, come talk to me. You can ask me anything and expect a decent answer, and I would give examples of the total crap I had heard as a kid, most of which would result in pregnancy. Son, age 6. Daughter, age 7. Riding home from school, daughter says Tiffany said she had sex with my brother, which left me a grand total of 3 minutes to gather my wits before we got home. Okay, do you guys know what sex is? Blank looks. Sex is when you take off all of your clothes and rub privates together. You can make babies that way. Looks of shock and disgust. Do you think your brother had sex with Tiffany? No. I think she was using a really bad way of trying to say she likes him, and maybe she watches the wrong TV shows, where if people like each other, they always have sex. Were my kids really ready for a sex talk? No, not really. They didn't care. Did we really need to have one about then? Yep. My job as a parent is to be there to put things that come up in context for them. not run around after them deciding what and when they need to know things. Story 7. I was in nursing school when my kids were little, and they loved looking through my textbooks. They'd ask questions. I'd give age-appropriate answers. We never had the talk, but it was just kind of ingrained into everyday conversation. If something came up, the best was when my son, who was in 2nd grade, asked me what a boner was. My daughter, who had just had her first sex ed class in 5th grade, piped up and said, "Oh, I know? That's when a boy has a really happy dream and ejaculates in his bed." Not only did I have to keep from laughing, I then had to explain erections and wet dreams. In the 3 minutes we had in the car, always in the car, before I dropped them off at school. Story 8. I remember parents are so wrong about when kids start thinking and talking about sex, and I was present of mind enough now as a father to remember from my childhood. I remember pretty much in 1st or 2nd grade, it was already a topic of major discussion among the boys. Like you said, too, lots of misinformation, but we had the basic idea of it. Again, though, was a different time. We all made wild assumptions and what we could piece together from media. I think later some kid found a hustler his dad had at home, and that really clued us into the mechanics of it. But now kids will just go look up porn on the computer and know everything right away. Kinda sad. Story 9. Happened to my son in middle school. A kid sucker punched my son. My son then fought back and pinned the kid against the wall. He has long arms, and punched him a few times. The school called me and my wife and told us our son was suspended. We went to the school, and they said even though multiple witnesses as the kid said he threw the first punch, that the school had a zero-tolerance policy, so our son would be suspended. We asked what the school believed our son should have done, and they said he should just walk away. We told them that he would not be receiving any punishment at home and that the policy was fucked up. Story 10. My parents stayed at my house for a few weeks while they closed on their new house, and the subject came up. I told them how stupid their mindset was to this growing up, followed up by 20+ examples of times if they had listened to me as a kid we would not have been in shit situations. Story 11. Once when I was 7, my family went out to eat. I told my mom that the chicken wasn't cooked right and that I wouldn't eat it, and that I didn't want them to. My mom told me not to talk back or be disrespectful. Everyone ate it but me. Everyone got food poisoning but me. Imagine a child having a reasonable and unique thought that's also accurate. Crazy. Story 12. My parents still don't listen to me. I'm a 28-year-old veteran. Last summer we went to visit them, and my dad brought us out on their boat. I mentioned my dad was getting too close to the concrete buoys. He brushed it off. A little later, he was really powering the motor and heading dead on for one, and I yelled at him twice, "We're gonna hit the buoy." Slow down. We hit the buoy. Did hundreds of dollars in damage to his boat. He never listens. Story 13. Grew up with a parent who was a lawyer. I was always allowed to argue my point. There were many times where she still won because she was the parent in the situation. But she would always justify why, and I could always make my case. And sometimes, I won too. My husband was raised to react when mom and dad say jump, you say how high. His parents still say jump and are now pissed that my husband is a grown-ass man and has his own family and ideas and needs, and they can't reconcile it. Story 14. Every time a kid got hurt on the playground, whatever they were doing was banned. They banned the monkey bars, the climbing wall, then the swings, then balls, until they finally banned running altogether. All we could do was stand around and look at the playground. We couldn't play any games because stuff like Pokemon cards, Bakugan, and Japanese erasers were all banned too. Luckily, these bans only lasted a few months, long enough for the overprotective moms threatening to sue to calm down. Which I always found funny because it was very clear they weren't concerned about safety, but with getting in trouble with parents. Otherwise, bans would be permanent. Story 15. My parents told me my cat went to Florida when it died. I was on a school trip at a petting zoo and saw my cat's doppelganger and apparently had a freak out trying to reclaim him. The teacher thought I was insane because I kept screaming, "That's my cat is back from Florida." Funny story to tell though. Story 16. I had a girl who would constantly bully me at the bus stop. I told my mom, and she took it to the administration, who called both me and the bully into the office and told this wouldn't stand, and the bully needed to get on at a different stop. Well, they never enforced that, so all it accomplished was getting me bullied harder because I was a tattler. Story 17. Making children hug or kiss someone, usually a relative, that they are uncomfortable with is not good. The child may just be grumpy and or not wanting to show affection, or their warning bell sensors could be going off, and they do not know how to communicate that. Plus, forcing them to hug kiss sends mixed messages about personal physical boundaries and affection itself. Story 18. I teach personal finance in the How My course is deemed the red-headed stepchild of the school. Oh, they could just do it online self-paced, where they learn nothing. Oh, my course is all on the computer, so you can make up a semester of learning in a week. What the hell logic is that? Parents tell me they're glad their kid is in the class. I tell them to go home and emphasize that to their student because the students are so ho-hum about it. The only thing I wish is that I could really take my course from theoretical to pseudo-real. Have every kid have an actual job and pay them bi-weekly, take taxes from them, make them pay bills and rent, etc. All these things would be with monopoly money. But there's aspects of this concept that require so much micromanagement on my part that it would make it really difficult. Plus, then, I'd have to contend with school and county policy and certain things, like why did student X get a 0 for paying September rent? Me, well, he didn't give me the monopoly money, so he didn't pay his rent. Them, well, if he gives it to you now? Me, okay, but with a late fee. Them, but he doesn't have that much. Me, okay, I'll add that to his next rent payment. But the grade in the grade book can only be Y because it was late. Them, but he paid. Me. There is so much cool personal finance stuff that teachers can do, but it's hard if you can't really treat it like real life. Story 19. The worst part is they repeat them and hear the same political views so much that they internalize it. When they are older enough to question it, they then have an identity crisis because the things their parents said don't make sense when examined a little further. So, like anyone else, when your views come under scrutiny, you dig a deeper trench and pretty much develop an unspoken pledge of loyalty to your political party. Story 20. That everybody is a winner. No. Losing and disappointments are part of life, and they are integral to your growth both emotionally and socially. We have a lot of people who enter the real world who have been told they are deserving of things just because and cannot take rejections and losses in their personal and professional lives with any grace whatsoever. This is also resulting in mediocrity being accepted as a norm cause nobody wants to call out ineptitude, while the hard work and dedication being put in by people who do end up in good positions are being played down. It's a little harsh, but it's true. Kids gotta learn how to lose before they can truly start to win. That's the only way being gracious in victory will ever come about. Story 21. This is more at a high school level, but that trade schools or learning a trade is a lesser option compared to a standard college degree. Trade schools and learning a skilled trade need just as much emphasis as a college degree. Along those same lines, college or trade school should be treated as a busy investment. Time should be taken for teens to examine how long it will take to repay their schooling and if that degree is worth the money. Especially now with previous generation living longer and staying in the job market longer. Combined with more and more people graduating with degrees, there is more supply, and the demand is not growing evenly in all areas of expertise. Story 22. History from a single perspective. I am a history teacher, and I firmly believe one of the most damaging things schools do is teach history from a single perspective, especially a Eurocentric one. It just isn't how history works and causes lots of issues for any person group who doesn't share that single perspective. Story 23. There was this one time my sister's Spanish teacher told her off for using vocabulary outside the sheet she'd been given for homework. Their task was to write a short essay introducing themselves in Spanish and use some simple adjectives. She asked me for help, and since I'm quite a bit older than her and know a decent amount of Spanish, I have her a few interesting adjectives and verbs to use instead of dumb stuff like nice and kind or whatever. She comes back after school close to tears and tells me she got scolded for using vocab that wasn't on the sheet. Some teachers are supposed to encourage learning, not hinder it, right?